Sorry, if there's anyone in the share now who could possibly send like pinpoint location to my father. He's
Trying.
by
Ari,
one of the shawarma stores.
Ari, is someone trying now? Do it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Where is he? He's right
I
outside.
think he said he was right by the Rova Market. So I think like right where the shawarma stores are.
It's very close.
Again. Market.
That's Chaim.
Okay,
So,
thank you so much.
Chaim Dov's going to bring him in personally.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry about this. I got that off. Okay. We are we're recording already. Okay. Okay, we're on the bottom of Lamed. What is it? Lamed Beis and Beis. And we're talking about the Adasim. The Mishnah said the Psulim of the Adas, and the Mishnah, the Gemara now, 4 lines to the bottom. Tana Rabbanan, Nashru Rov Allah. If most of the leaves fell off, Rashi in the Mishnah says that Nifritzu means Nashru, and it says in the Mishnah that this puzzle. Here it says that even if you have that most of the leaves fell off, in the Shnai Bomiyut, as long as you have a minimal amount of the leaves left, kosher. But the Brisa continues, it's only if you still have the triple leaves. Avos means the braid, which we said braided means that it has 3 leaves coming out of each level, out of each con. So here it's kosher, even if over the leaves fell off, as long as you have the triple leaves. And the most kash is if rove fell off, you don't have any more triple. If you have 3 leaves and 2 of them fall off, which is the robe, you only have 1 leaf left. Well, what's going to be avoso about that? It's inherently difficult. First, she said that even if most of the leaves fell off, it's still kosher. But then it says as long as you still have that the triple leaf is still remaining. If 2 out of 3 fell off, you don't anymore even have this triple leaf anymore. And I would ask, I don't know, but I would ask even if 1 leaf would fall off, also you don't have any avos. Avos only if you have 3. And if you have 1 of them fell off, out of every 3, 1 fell off. So you don't have 3 anymore. But the more is even more extreme that 2 of them fell off. So what do you have? You have a row of 3 and 2 of them fell off. You have 1 single solitary leaf, and you're saying that it's called avos. It's called braided kind of a branch. Rabbi Mishkachasla be'asa mitzvah. Top line. That it's kind of adasim that have more than 3 leaves. If you started off with 3 leaves and most of them fell off, then you're right, you only have 1 leaf left. But there are some adasim which the Gemara calls asa mitzvah. Rashi subshatim, if that means a hadas. The word asa means hadas. A mitzvah, some say means on the border. Some say means Misri, like Egyptian. According to either pshat, it's a kind of hadas that has 7 leaves. The kami shiva shiva b'chad kina, that it has 7 on each row. Rashi says that if it's growing in the border, it means it's not next to any other plants. It doesn't have competition for growth, and it's possible to develop well, and it gets 7 leaves instead of 3, it has 7. And also the Egyptian kind is certain kind of a variety that has hadassim that has 7 leaves on each level. And over there, it's possible to have that most of them fell off, which is going to be 4, and you still have 3 left. So even when the majority is going to fall off, which is 4, you still have 3 left. But what does the Gemara say? That it's only kosher if you have the avos, if you have 3 left, which now is relevant. Now we don't have these 7-leafed hadassim. We have 3 on each level. So what happens if the leaves fall off? It's not called any more avos. And even if 1 falls off, it's not called anymore that it's braided. The issue we have to deal with is how long in the length of the hadas, how many sets of 3 do you have to have? Because each one that falls off, each leaf that falls off, that set is out. And then the post can talk about it. The Gemara doesn't talk about it anymore. The Gemara says that on each leaf, on each level, you have to have 3 left. But the post can talk about, okay, so this one fell off, another one fell off. How many levels of 3, how many groups of 3 do I have to have on the hadas? And they talk about that. The whole thing, rove is good enough. And the rove they talk about, it has to be rove in 1 continuous line. Or is it possible to collect throughout the hadas that most of the groups are still 3? So that's really what the post can talk about. The Gemara doesn't talk about it. The Gemara ends off. The fact that we talk about this Asa Mitzvah, if it's called Egyptian or the border, whatever the pshat in Mitzvah is, it says that's kosher. We're talking about even if most of the leaves fall off, it's still kosher as long as you have 3 left. But you see that it's a kosher hadas. Why not? Why shouldn't it be kosher? You might think that since it has a special name and accompanied name, which we saw before in the Gemara, that sometimes by Mora or by Ezo, it says if it has a particular name, then it's not kosher. It has to be stam, like Mora, not that a Mora Lumisa, not a certain kind of a Mora or Ezo Yavon. It has to be a regular Ezo. So too over here, maybe it has to be a regular das. Maybe it's not a puzzle. The pasuk doesn't demand that it should be a particular kind of hadas. It just says 8 savos. Tosha says that Tosha seems to say that the Gemara means that 8 savos is extra riboy, to say that any kind of hadas is good, even if it has a shem lavoy. Then the Gemara comes out that even though it has a shem lavoy, even as though it has a specific name, it still is kosher. So what did the Gemara say so far? That if any of the leaves fall off and you don't have a triple level anymore, that level, that group of if 3 is not called avos, it's not called that is graded. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome. We finally, Ari, your father is here, and the group welcomes you. The Simcha, you should have a good yishuv.
Amen.
For Lamed Gimel, the first Gemara spoke about that mushroom, Rov Olav. What the Gemara comes out, is that any level that doesn't have 3 leaves anymore is puzzle, and you have to have at least 3 that are left. And as far as how many you have to have in the length of the hadas, the Gemara doesn't talk about that. The poskim will talk about. And the Gemara also mentions that asa mitzvah, even though it has a shem lavoy, it's still kosher. Tana Rabbana. Yavshu Rov Olav v'nisharu bo shlosha b'ad yad l'mach. Now we're talking about Yavshu. The Mishnah also said besides das Gazdo, it says das Yavish. A dried out das is also puzzle. Yavshu Rov Olav v'nisharu bo shlosha b'ad yad l'mach. Kosher. Even if most of the leaves dried out, it's still possible to be kosher. You would have thought in the Mishnah that it says Yavish is not good. So then, even if once you have at least most of the leaves are dried, it should be kosher. But the Brisa says no, it's possible still to be kosher. Even if most of the leaves dried up, as long as you have 3 badei alon lachim. So Rashi tried it like this. Rashi says badei means the stems. How many branches? And if you have 3 branches left, how many branches did you start with? That's a little bit difficult because you only need 3 branches. But his Rashi sounds as if you had many branches like the Teimanim. They take many hadasim, and you have 3 kosher ones left. That's what you need in the first place. But that's what Rashi learns, that you have 3 stems, 3 branches of hadasim, and alon lachim, and it has moist leaves. It doesn't say how many moist leaves. Rashi says that they have 3 moist leaves. So if you have 3 branches, each branch has 3 moist leaves, it's kosher. It means one group of 3. On the top. The way Rashi learns that even if you have that the whole hadasim became dried out, as long as the top 3, the group of 3 on top of the hadas is kosher, that's good enough. That's the end of the Gemara according to Rashi. A big chiddush that even if you have most of the leaves dried out, as long as you have the top set, the top 3 on top of each branch is moist, that's kosher enough.
Who else this way?
This is the Gemara. Rashi, as I said, the Gemara according to Rashi. The Rashi has difficulty with Rashi's pshat. He learns differently, and both pshat are brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. According to the Rush, the Gemara means shlosha badei alon lachim means 3 sets. You have to, in each stem, of course, you have to have 3 stems, 3 branches. That you have to have 3 hadasim. But each hadas has to have 3 groups of 3 groups that have some moist leaves. How many? And that the Gemara explains. He says that on every group of 3, you have 1 leaf which is more dominant. I don't know if we see that always, but if you have 3 and 1 is like riding on the other 2, 1 is covering the other 2. So he calls this 1 dominant leaf, and that's the one that has to be moist. But you don't have to have all 3. Once it comes out that you have to have 3 on each branch, you have to have 3 levels, that each level has at least 1 dominant moist leaf.
Rabbi.
Again, according to Rashi, each branch only has to have the 3 top leaves should be moist, and according to the Rush, it doesn't have to be the top of the branch. It has to be that each branch has 3 levels that have moist leaves. How many moist leaves? 1 moist leaf on each level, but the dominant leaf. And both are brought down in Shulchan Aruch. And I would think from the Gemara alone, there's no issue to have that if the top leaves are only the top leaves are dried out, it doesn't make a problem. The Gemara says that if you have the whole thing is dried out and the top is moist, that's good enough. But to say that if the whole thing is moist and the top one got dried out, there's no chashivas to the top leaves of the adas. By lulav, we saw that there's a chashivas to the top leaves, the tumas, even if, but by the adas and the rava, we think that there's no chashivas to the top leaves. But the Mishnah Berurah does bring down some poskim that are machmir by the top leaves if they get dried out, if they get cut off. That we said yesterday, we'll say it again right now. The next Gemara, Niktan Rosho, that the poskim say there's no issue about the top leaves being cut off. There's only a problem by a lulav if the top leaves are more sensitive. But by the adas, when we say Niktan Rosho, the next thing coming up, Niktan Rosho is only if the stem, the branch itself got cut, but it got nicked. But if the top leaves came off, it's not worse than any of these that came off. He says interesting thing that according to those posting that say that the top leaves are dried out, it is a problem. So he says, so take off the leaves. If they're dry leaves over there, then it's a problem. But take off the leaves, then it's not a problem. He brings that down. That according to the Bach that says that the top leaves, if they're dried out, it's a problem. Even if the rest of the lulav is still moist, so take off the leaves, then it's going to be kosher. So we'll get to the halacha eventually, maybe before Sukkot, we'll do more of the halachas inside. But now in the Gemara said that even if most of the leaves are dry, if you have shlosha, badi, alam, achan, it's still kosher. And we had two pshat with the Rashi and the Rashi. The next Gemara. Yeah, but that's even that's how we didn't get to Esrog yet. We'll get to that stuff. We'll just talk about the lulav. So we're trying to compare the lulav and the adas. And the Esrog we'll get to. The pitim is not what people call the pitim is not so simple that it becomes possible if the top comes off. We'll see when we get to the Gemara. Nicked and Rosho. Going on that, it says if the top was nicked, then it's possible. Again, the poskim say it doesn't mean the leaf. It means the stem. The stem of the adas. If the top became cut off, so then it's possible. And the Gemara is not going to discuss that. That's a given. That Nicked and Rosho, the top of the branch got cut off. It's possible. The top of the leaf, the poskim say is not a problem. Tani Yuba Bachinina. Nicked and Rosho also about tomorrow kasha. Even though we said that if the top of the branch of the adas became cut, it's possible. But there's a way that it can get healed. Also about tomorrow. Tomorrow is some kind of a berry. The Mishnah uses the berries of the Adasim also. The Mishnah called it an avav, like a grape. Here it calls it a tamar, like a date. I don't know how it looked. And maybe it's a different kind, the one that grows in the place where, in the top of the branch. But it says in the place where the branch got cut off, sometimes it grows some kind of a berry, and that makes it kosher. It heals the wound. That is, if it's cut, so you see a cut adas. But if you see that a berry grew on top of it, that makes it kosher. I never saw anything like that, but we're going to discuss the halacha, which has ramifications to other places also. So that's the halacha that even though niktam is possible, but if it grows a berry in this place, it's kosher. Niktam Moshe may have yamtiv also about tomorrow be yamtiv ma'u. What if it was the hadas was cut and it was possible? When yamtiv came in, it was possible, but then during yamtiv it grew this berry, which makes it kosher. Rashi says that these berries grow even when it's not attached. It doesn't have to be attached. In order to grow this berry. Even after that detached, it's still possible to grow. So what if when Yontif came in, it was possible, and then on Yontif it became kosher because the berry grew? What's the issue? And now it's a kosher hadas. Why should it be problematic? The question is, yesh difference on mitzvahs, although the fact that a mitzvah was pushed away, does that make that it can't become kosher anymore? Rashi compares this to karbonis. It's then by a carbon, if a carbon became possible, after it was shechted. Rashi avoids the whole issue about balachayim ein nidachim. If it's still alive, then there's no dichoy. But after the animal was shechted, if it became possible in any way, it doesn't become kosher again. And we had a mashal once upon a time. I don't know if it's a good mashal, but just to throw out a mashal hediot that if somebody was, maybe it's a good mashal, if somebody would be, let's say, demoted. He had a position and he was demoted. He was impeached. And then he wants to run again for office. Is that a possibility that somebody was like a bizayon? They embarrassed him. So he should be, I'm not going to come back again. Like, what is this? They threw me out and come back again. So like you slapped him in the face, then you want to act. So too is possible that a mitzvah, once it became like a carbon, something was possible for a carbon, even if the psul went away, maybe it can't become a kosher carbon again. And then it wants to know about a mitzvah. Yeah, something which was kosher was possible for a mitzvah. This hadas was a possible hadas, and now could it become kosher again?
Rabbi.
I said the case that it was slapped and pushed. That's a bit worse. The Gemara is going to say later on that once it was kosher and then became possible, it could become kosher again. But here the Gemara is not going so deep. That was first originally possible, disqualified, and now it became possible, can qualify it again. Does it become kosher? Here the case is that das when Yom Tov came in, it was a possible hadas because it was cut off on top, but on Yom Tov it grew this berry, which makes it kosher. If it would have happened that I got the berry before Yom Tov came in, then when Yom Tov came in, it was kosher. But if Yom Tov came in, it was possible. The Gemara wants to know, could it become kosher still?
Like no lad in a certain way.
You can call it a different name, but the terminology the one's using is called if it's dachi. It's dachi is a problem. It's dicha.
Rebbe.
So that's inside. The Gemara first said the halacha that if you got to bury, it's kosher. Now Rabbi asked, "What Come up before Yantif, and on Yantif carry. What's the question? Is mitzvahs? Or is it the fact that it was pushed away? Is it they probably pushed? Was it possible to bring it back again? Now let's move from the following Mishnah. Mishnah in Chulin talks about kisi adam. Kisi adam means when you slaughter a bird or a chaya, a deer. Then there's a din to cover the blood. By regular animals, by behemoth, by a cow or sheep, and a goat, also shalacha. But by birds, when you go to the slaughterhouse, go to a slaughterhouse where they shecht animals, you don't see any kisi adam. But if you go to a slaughterhouse where they shecht birds, so then they do kisi adam.
Your volume is very low, or not here.
Oh boy.
You can't hear people, you can't hear them when you're, okay, the Rebbe is checking it. Let's see what.
Thank you. I'm sorry about all that. Didn't hear anything. Okay,
Hello?
I hope that you're hearing now.
Rebbe,
Okay. Yes, now we're hearing.
yeah, is it possible to ask two things?
I'm sorry?
We asked two things. One is when my chavrus and I were